Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Looks like we're starting on time today. So I'm just going to go over today's event outline. We are going to be talking about seven-figure selling on Amazon in 2023. So are you a successful Amazon seller who's looking to take your selling success to the next level? Then you've come to the right place. Today's webinar is for you. We've got an expert panel lined up for you today. So we, ClearAds, are delighted to bring together some of the brightest Amazon-focused advertising minds from around the world to help you learn from their experiences and expertise. So this session on seven-figure selling on Amazon will guide you through those techniques and approaches that take sellers into those seven figures and beyond. So in today's webinar, we have myself, I'm Tom Waghorn, the current head of accounts here at ClearAds, head of training and development. Sounds like too many roles at the moment, but yeah, I'm going to be hosting this today for you. We've got a wonderful panel of guests. So first of all, I'm going to introduce Sean Smith. So over the past 7 years, he has helped hundreds of 6, 7, 8-figure sellers achieve their ideal relationship between sales velocity, profitability with his Amazon PPC strategies and tactics. We're also joined by Destaney Wishon. She is the CEO of BetterAMS. BetterAMS is a retail media agency focused on helping the world's best brands scale their ads effectively. Brent Zahradnik is the founder of AMZ Pathfinder, an Amazon advertising management agency. He started the company in 2015 and has since worked with hundreds of brands selling in North America and European Amazon marketplaces. So they manage millions of dollars of spend per month, speaking 12 languages over the course of the agency, living all over the planet, currently residing in southern France. And we're also joined by, last but not least, Aaron Marino. By the end of this 90-minute free webinar, you will know exactly how other brands manage to grow and scale their businesses. So take these practical insights and apply them to your own brand and see your business scale and grow. So without further ado, I think we should just jump into our questions and our topics for today. So I'm going to start off relatively broad and open this question up to our panel today. What do you think makes an Amazon seller become super successful? What is it that is setting those seven-figure sellers apart from those smaller sellers or those that are kind of struggling to climb up that tree to go from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 figures? Is it branding? Is it their processes, the tools they use, the technology? Does it just come down to their great products, or is it something else, or a mix of all of these and more?
I'll jump in here.
Jump in.
Beyond the obvious of having an amazing product and something that customers actually need and want, I will say there's really two big shifts we see. One is a mindset shift. We see the most successful sellers really embrace delayed gratification. And what that comes down to is a really, big focus on like margins and making bigger investments into the growth of their company, knowing that they're going to get that back later on as their organic rank improves, as their audience builds and grows. That's a really big one that we see. And then secondly, I'll say operationally, it's starting to let go of the things that they're not amazing at. In the beginning, you have to do anything and everything, and this brand is your baby. But the people who are really good at starting to place others in roles of success that they're better at than maybe the owner, the brands that do that well can typically scale a lot better because they have time to focus on what they're best at and they're trusting. They're not trying to micromanage everyone in order to see success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think even as an agency, I think that was one of the things I noticed the most when we started out. It was our CEO letting go of those things and having the trust to have other team members actually take over those processes. It wasn't a one-man ship anymore. Hiring those people to do those smaller jobs, the ones that you're not good at, the ones you don't want to do anymore, and then you can funnel your efforts into those areas that work the best. And I think that probably applies to every company, right? It doesn't just have to be an Amazon seller.
100%. Something's better than perfect, I think, is something that was really big for us, of realizing like, hey, I have 10 people. They may not do it as well as I would do this one thing, but all of their efforts across the board will add up to more output than I could ever have as an individual human.
Yeah, for sure. Can I jump in next?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grant.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I have like two answers that come to mind. The first one is willingness to invest in branding as a serious exercise. And I don't mean branding just in the sense of like, oh, our logo is like really hot, or like we have the coolest like lifestyle photos, but like actual branding. Because my hypothesis here is like incredible branding solves a lot of problems because incredible branding turns into demand, which turns into revenue. And in my opinion, revenue covers a lot of sins. Revenue solves a lot of problems. So the more revenue you have, the more other things you can have in the business that maybe aren't 100% or aren't perfect, but it's kind of covered and aided by that. I find this to be true in agency too. You know, if you have like a couple of really good products that you address the market with, and those things are big revenue drivers, you have the extra money to experiment with other stuff, which may or may not be a hit, you know, a knock out of the park, to use a baseball analogy. Yeah, so I think that's the first thing. I mean, think of the brands that you think of when you think of brands. For the American audience, I'm sure there's some of them out there, but like, yeah, I don't know, like McDonald's, Nike, you know, Adidas is obviously a German company, but like we all know these brands worldwide, and you just have to see like the swoosh or like see the three stripes, like you know what that means. And I'm not sure how many companies on Amazon have the aspirations to have that kind of brand, but they do exist. I mean, we've seen exits from really large aggregators and purchases of some brands on Amazon that are now household status, or at least have huge, like high profiles. And those are extremely valuable companies. So that'll take you to seven figures and well beyond. The other thing I'll say is a bit more tactical and kind of lower level, but dashboarding. I think a lot of our best clients, what I see them do is they have dashboards that are either custom built, they work with agencies or tool providers to build them, or they just use them inside of 3P software. So like they, at the top level of the company, the management, they have the ability to look at a dashboard on a daily basis or even more frequently, and kind of monitor all the KPIs that they care about the most. And if something falls out of like the normal kind of parameters, they can start to adjust early on. So it's like an early warning, like alarm system for things that can go wrong in the business, because you want to keep that ball spinning. So
it's raised as a red flag pretty much immediately. And even if it's just an anomaly, you've noticed it straight away.
Yeah.
I would say, speaking for my clients, the ones that are seven figures and super successful, the one common denominator amongst all of them seems to be their mindset. So beyond technology and processes, really the why is what fuels them to keep learning, keep growing, stick with their processes, all that sort of thing. For example, one of my clients, he used to be a virtual assistant in India. And you know, he would tell me about these stories about his manager would always come down on him, how he was mean to him. And that just fueled him so much to be successful. And he really just stuck to the process, found good mentors, learned what to do, and that allowed him to do that. So that's what seems to be the common thing that really helps someone go from nothing to 6, then 7, then beyond.
Yeah.
And then for me, I was taking notes while everybody's, you know, just to structure my thoughts. I just break it into two buckets, like the entrepreneur and then like the Amazon specific. So like on the entrepreneurial side, it's about, for me, at least from what I've seen over the years with Amazon sellers, it's about, and some of it'll be overlap with everyone else, but community, picking the right community, picking the right mentor, because it covers a lot of bases. You know, it covers hiring, it covers so many things when you have the right people in place. And, you know, life's a team sport. So you have to make sure you have the right people around you. So we've seen that, you know, right mentor, right community, good decision-making processes. How do they refine their decision-making processes on a daily basis? Because I've seen entrepreneurs where they're killing it, and then they get to a point in their business and, you know, it gets nice and comfy, and their decision-making processes kind of trail off, and they don't have that hunger and that skill set that they had before. So you have to sharpen that as a skill. And then data and systems is a big one. And then consistency. You know, there's a high percentage of burnout in entrepreneurship. So how, like, you know, what's your level of self-awareness and how are you applying that so you don't burn out? So I think that's taking care of the entrepreneur. And then Amazon specific, I think the biggest one that we've seen is the ability to adapt to the platform, because it's not really an industry where it moves slow. You know, there are industries where things never change. And then there are industries where things always change. And Amazon is one of those industries where always change. And we've had to change as well, you know, how we provide our service. So, you know, understanding the landscape and how to optimize for, like, these days, a lot of people are talking about profit. You know, when I started doing Amazon, no one really talked as much about profit as they do now. And so the best Amazon sellers are like, hey, you know, how do we decrease our customer acquisition costs? That's the lowest hanging fruit, and that's increasing conversion rate. So, being able to see that, like, hey, before you couldn't just have this type of content, you need to have this type of content to increase conversion rate, lower customer acquisition costs, so that you can have a nice margin. So making sure you're doing product research, good product research, conversion rate optimization, and then supply chain optimization. I'd say like that, kind of like this, the entrepreneur and the Amazon specific.
Okay.
Okay.
So what insights do you use most often, and how are they helpful for scaling up to and beyond seven-figure selling? I keep wanting to say second. I don't know why. Seven-figure selling.
Freudian slip. No,
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
I will hop in. So brand metrics is probably my absolute favorite rollout when it comes to anything Amazon advertising. I'm pretty sure I've like preached this nonstop for the last 3 months. So I apologize for everyone who's already heard this. But Amazon advertising rolled out this really tiny tab in advertising console called brand metrics. And it allows you to see your actual conversion rate across advertising and retail engagements and compare it to your categories. So before you ever consider running traffic or investing more in PPC, you need to make sure that the traffic you're driving to your listings is actually converting. Every brand that comes to us probably thinks they have one of the best listings in the game. Yeah. And they're like, why is my PPC not working? So having the ability to actually compare that to category averages, 30% conversion rate, we have a 20% conversion rate. Let's improve our listing before we ever consider investing in more PPC. So high level, that's probably one of my absolute new favorite tools to utilize.
What would you do for people who say that to increase that conversion rate, you'd need PPC in the first place?
Oh, that's like the absolute worst. Like your conversion rate is based on the ability to get people to land on your listing and buy your product. Driving more traffic does not increase that. If you have 10 people view your listing and only one purchase, 100 people viewing your listing is probably not going to change that percentage that much.
Yeah, I'll chime in and say something related, which is a search term impression share, something we love and we use frequently. I remember when that report first came out, and this is getting pretty tactical right away, but like when that report first came out, we had to build some macros to like tie that to some other pieces of data and then use that really routinely to figure out how are we tracking for impression share for sponsored products in particular, week to week. Is it improving? Are we sliding down? Is it staying the same? That and search query performance, which is probably like one of the hottest like talks of the town for a while now. It has the download button. Everyone's throwing a party. And all the other things inside of brand analytics, because that area is just like seemingly always expanding and always improving. That seems to be an area that Amazon is investing a lot in. So those are what I would classify as like insights, right, Tom? The question was, what are the insights? To me, those are really good like methods of getting insights. Those are both pretty ad related, but that's how I see the world, I guess. But those two are really key for understanding conversion rate, market share, and what you're doing versus competitors, because no Amazon category or product exists in a vacuum, right? They all exist in the context of other things, and it's a highly volatile ecosystem in general. Yeah.
Brand analytics, there's multiple different tabs in there that I think are just underutilized as well.
I lose track of it. Yeah, I don't even know how many things are in there anymore. I have no idea.
You were talking about the search query performance, but you've got like this search catalog performance as well now. And there's just so many different things in there. It's like, how do I know where to start? But I think the search query performance is really good because it just shows you that full journey from the impression to the purchase. But being able to download that now is incredibly useful.
Yeah, and actually a tip I learned from Destaney, thank you Destaney, is if you are in an account, you need to get the global user permissions set correctly so you can actually see that if you are not, if you don't see it, if you're in someone's account. Is that right, Destaney? You were like my guru on that, my Sherpa.
That's probably been the biggest issue I've seen in this space, especially on the agency side, is unlocking that dang permission, because it's this really, really tiny and it's like brand global permissions, and then it unlocks the capabilities. So yeah.
Yeah, we had a funny case with one of our clients where even he couldn't find it and he couldn't give it to us. And it turned out that his partner had signed up for the account. So she was the only one that had the global permission. So it's like a long chain of trying to find his wife's email so we could get the permissions. How about you, Aaron? What are the key insights that you use most often? On top of the ones we've
Uh,
discussed. Yeah.
Yeah, on top of those, I would say I would like to maybe chime in on like individual products. And for each specific like product category, what it helps me scale up my clients the most is like a combination of looking at net profit for that specific product as well as sales rank, right? Because with PPC, we're able to push more sales, but if that's decreasing overall profit, then it better be helping with sales rank so that overall sales starts to improve eventually. So using the combination of those two things really helps me push each specific product, which helps overall people lift into like the higher 7 figures.
Brilliant.
What was the question, Tom? Sorry, man. I got caught up in the wisdom.
That's fine. Yeah. So I guess once again for you and those listening at home, what insights do you use most often, and how are they helpful for scaling up to and beyond 7-figure selling?
Okay. Yeah. We use like SKU level profitability. So like really like what we've been working on is just basically like how do we make brands more profitable? So we've been using a tool called Sellerboard, and what I've been really spending a lot of time doing is honestly like spending less time on ad metrics and more time on managing the correlation between a change in advertising and its impact on total sales velocity, margin, and net profit. And so that's something that we've been really trying to invest in, because that's what's going to help us scale from 7 to 8 figures. Because when I think of scaling an Amazon business, they're very cash flow intensive. And so, you need a margin to be able to put money back in the bank and invest in new products and stuff like that. And then also like really like that's on the ad side is like managing the SKU level profitability. And then with, the working with my accounts and the people I work with is just making sure that I inform them that, conversion rate's really important, and that, price testing is really important, and that, you don't want to throw up a listing and just like let it ride. You have to have like a tenacious curiosity for optimizing your listing, because, people don't realize when you run a test, you're right, you're getting an outcome from the test, but what's really cool is that you're learning the behavior of the platform. So that's like, for me, like, I love like getting the results for my clients, but I also love that like, if I run a test, I'm understanding at a deeper level. It's almost like a relationship with the algorithm. Like I have a relationship with my wife, I understand her at a deep level. That's how I treat, like when I run ads and stuff, like I get this depth to the relationship that I have. And I feel like for me, that creates a more emotional connection to what I do. So it allows me to like, it's more sustainable, but like, that's what I try to encourage with the accounts I work with. Hey man, like you got to develop a relationship with your business, a healthy relationship, because it's a marriage. You're going to be in there for a while for the most part. So you might as well like try to really dive into conversion rate optimization, the things that grow the business, the conversion rate optimization, the price testing, and all that stuff.
Yeah, we love using Sellerboard too, and it's actually saved some of our clients. We had one example where there was
Same here, man.
Yeah, there was one auto campaign, and I know it's not the be all and end all because it was just an auto campaign, but it had a very unsustainable ACoS just when you're looking at the campaign manager. But when we were looking at Sellerboard, we were able to see that when we were pumping spend through this, it just increased our viewability and our discoverability. When we ran a test and turned that campaign off, yeah, like the organic discoverability just completely dropped off over the course of the remainder of that day. So just introducing that again. So I agree. Like, we weren't too focused on looking at the data on the campaign dashboard, and it was about like what are the global effects of these campaigns that are running. We were actually seeing way more profit, and the account was profitable outside of that unprofitable campaign because it was running and increasing that awareness. And that trickles down to all the keyword campaigns you run and all the PAT campaigns you run too.
That's actually probably a fantastic segue. I know it would be out of order with questions for a little bit, but that's been one of my probably most requested in terms of like content I've been putting out, is how to understand if your advertising is influencing your organic rank, and how to make sure that when your organic rank increases, even if you're spending more, you have economies of scale and your profit stabilizing. Tacos has probably been like one of the biggest discussions I feel like we've all probably had in the last 12 months. I put out a survey across most of our agencies, and I think we had like, from the responses, we had over 400 responses, and like the agencies that entered were over like half of I think it was like $500 million a year worth of spend managed. And everyone stated that their tacos used to be, 7 to 10% was healthy for their brands. But in the last 6 months, they've seen 10 to 15% be a much healthier metric. The reason being is Amazon has started prioritizing ads in the search results. It's oversaturated and you have to pay to play to an extent. So like what we've really been doing is how do we narrow down to what are the keywords that are most likely going to improve our organic rank? And once that organic rank and that revenue increases, how do we utilize tacos to make sure we're moving in the right direction?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of mistakes we've seen brands making is focusing too much on profit and tracking everything at the ASIN level. And yes, we get our tacos down and our profit up, and then we realize our revenue is slowly decreasing in a way that's unsustainable. So I think that's a good conversation for everyone here to have as well.
Yeah, definitely. Has anyone got any other points on tacos? It's definitely been a hot topic. I ran an hour training session on tacos today. Yeah, just talking about how you can identify what has affected your tacos. Because like the easy fix for tacos is decrease spend, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be to the benefit of your account. You decrease spend, but you probably also decrease revenue. Great.
That's my favorite. Like, we just need to cut back and spend. And then I pull their reports and realize 70% of their sales are coming from ads.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can do this, but you have a really unhealthy distribution of organic to advertising revenue. So let's focus on the long-term solution, which is improving organic rank rather than decreasing ad spend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that
point.
we this year, or the end of last year into this year, have started to focus more and more on content optimization and CRO for client products and catalogs, because the two things are so inextricably like linked. And there's no way to like parse them out separately. It's become more and more clear. It's probably something I should have done years ago, now that I think about it, actually. But we've taken to it pretty well. It's been a learning experience for sure. A couple of mess ups here and there, but like, yeah, overall, I think we're going to be better off for it. So after years of saying, hey, you need to improve this, this, and this, and then clients doing it, we're just saying, hey, we can just do this actually now. So something new, but something hopefully that has a, let's call it force multiplicative effect.
Yeah. Aaron, were you going to say something as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you should really know your end goal, because for us, we see that, yes, lowering the tacos, decreasing ad spend, it's great for profit. But like Destaney was saying, that in the long run, overall revenue can go down. You could lose sales rank, and that just creates a whole nother issue. I think the biggest thing to realize is that, where are you right now in your point of your business? Because like how Sean was saying, it's a cash flow machine. So if you need to pay back certain Amazon loans, or you need to fund certain new products, that sort of thing, then you may need cash flow now. And so just kind of measuring net profit constantly with your advertising is so key, because if you're just striving towards tacos, not looking at overall profit, then you could be shrinking your overall profit. For example, one account, we see that there's like a PPC ceiling where, once you reach that #1 spot in your category, more advertising sales doesn't necessarily help you anymore, because you can't get better than #1. So at that point, we see that PPC starts to cannibalize your overall profit. And I think that's why it's really important to always be measuring net profit. So it's not, eating your profit. It's more so just helping your profit.
Yeah. So moving on. So the next question, and I know we've covered a couple of tools. We've already talked about Sellerboard and even some of the internal tools on the Amazon platform. But what tools are you finding are most useful for people looking to grow up to those 7 figures? And how does this change when they are looking to go beyond that to 8 figures? Are there different tools out there that would suit different sellers' needs depending on where their company is currently grown to?
I would say, I don't think I work with as many brands as some other people in the room, so I don't have a large data set, but Sellerboard helps a lot. I think really any tool that like accurately measures your profit and your net profit is a good tool to have, because then you know what you're getting in the business and what's going out of the business. So that, and then the tools that I use my own software. So I use a software and mainly bulk files, to be honest. I just like the customization. Even though I have software, it just it takes time to build, new pieces of software. So bulk files are just much more flexible. And for someone who doesn't code, I can record macros and stuff like that. So I think for us, that's what's kind of been, and tools. I mean, the most important tool I think for Amazon sellers is that they're really good at like harvesting data. Data Dive is another one, but that actually, I got an email of one of my accounts was talking about like conversion rate optimization. He's pretty good at it. He uses like Data Dive, Sellerize, basically like looking for like ways to optimize his listing using different like tools to find the keywords to put in there. And then even tools like PickFu, which like allows you to do polls on images, because he does like image stack optimizations and stuff like that. Yeah. So like, I think those are some of the stuff that I don't use, but like my really smart clients that I work with inform me about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sean, I'll echo that because my answer is pretty much the same as yours, actually. It's just whatever allows you to have a deep, nuanced understanding of the keyword and SEO ranking landscape on Amazon for your category and subcategory, that alone is going to actually get you quite far on Amazon. Because the way I look at optimization or content optimization, there's doing it for humans and there's doing it for robots, aka Amazon's A9 and their whole structured data setup they have. And understanding the robots side of things will actually get you quite far on Amazon. I think that alone is what a lot of 7-figure businesses on Amazon are built off of, is having a very nuanced, mature understanding of how A9 works and how the ecosystem works, and then just exploiting that with tools like Data Dive, which is one I had in my own kind of mind here to mention, because we don't use it ourselves. We actually did a demo like just last week, but we probably will start to use it, because as we do more and more listing optimization, we're like, oh damn, this is actually like a big shortcut, something we can really lean on. So I think that'll get you quite far, because the answer, Tom, the question, if I remember, was like, what'll get you to 7 figures? I think that'll help you get there. I'm not sure if it'll take you much further past that though. I think you might need other stuff to go to 8, 9. That's like a whole different set of problems. But to get there, I think that, having a nuanced understanding of that is a real killer. That'll get you pretty far.
So going beyond the 7 figures, that's where it kind of comes back to those broader questions that we asked at the beginning about focusing on your branding and your processes and getting the entrepreneur right, and then getting your internal processes right, getting your branding right. So
yeah, like from what I hear with sellers that can scale is like they have systems that work on a repeatable basis that are like high probability. So it's kind of like product research. They have a system that works high probability repeatable, so they can just work a lot quicker and and then leverage debt, that's a whole nother thing. But that, yeah. Cause it's cash flow. So like, you gotta be like, and I don't know any about that, but
me neither. I've listened to some scary figures when people have been talking about leveraging and buying debt. And I was like, oh, not getting into that.
Yeah, that's maybe a different podcast. Shout out to Bill D'Alessandro, who I follow online on a couple different forums, but he did a Twitter thread recently about analyzing all the different areas you can get money for e-commerce, basically, and some of the percentages that are promised by Amazon and some other lenders in the e-commerce space are actually way higher than they look if you do the math carefully. So that was an eye-opening thread.
Destaney, Aaron, are you using any different tools than what we mentioned?
Nothing from an external third-party aspect. I mean, we've built everything out pretty much internally. We have a few tools that are great once you get to like the 8, the 9-figure seller range, but I feel like you start having to move into more like retail awareness and market share plays. The one thing I will say is I am really surprised at how many people don't stay in tune with what Amazon's releasing themselves. Like, I am always a fan of first-party data over third-party data. And Amazon is making huge investments because the platform is getting more competitive. So we need more data to justify spending more when we're seeing less of a return. So we have things like brand metrics, like brand analytics, search query performance reports, the demographic reporting, Amazon marketing stream for those who are focused on profitability and want to day part. Like, that's one of my favorite, high horses to be on, is that everyone who's been claiming day parting is a thing for the last 2 years is wrong. We've never actually had access until that data until a few months ago when Amazon Marketing Stream released it. So I think those are things to really stay aware of. Then you layer in, Amazon Marketing Cloud. So for those who are spending on platform, off platform, the ability to build out your own attribution models and figure out more touch points. Like Amazon's trying to solve a problem. So find a way to stay up to date with every single new release and update. I mean, even as small as like brand impression share is now something being rolled out into Ad Console, which allows us to see, hey, what's our search volume relative to others? And what does that branded search comparison look like? So I know it's kind of a high level answer, philosophical, but stay up to date with everything Amazon's giving us, because that's going to be the most powerful access we get across the board.
Yeah, and I would say the only thing I would chime in on is for 6 figures trying to get to 7 figures. I talked to a lot of them, and the one consistent thing I think I see in all of them is that a lot of them still spend time doing minuscule tasks like bid management or harvesting keywords or that sort of thing. And that's precious time that they could be spending elsewhere in their business. So I would say like it's kind of a given for all of us. We already know having a solid bid management system, a budget management system, a campaign creation system, that sort of thing we already know. A lot of these 6 figures don't necessarily know how turnkey it can be. So just investing in some sort of tool, whether that's an internal tool that you make yourself, a lot of people could do it through bulk operations or creating a simple Google Sheets script, right? Or using a software, right? You could do that as well. But just getting that taken care of so you can spend your time working on bigger things, perhaps using some of these other tools like Data Dive or that sort of thing to really find those, next level insights to take it even further from there.
Brilliant, thanks for that. And there's another tool at the moment which is kind of a buzz around LinkedIn at the moment, is ChatGPT. Is this something that we can actually seriously consider to help businesses grow? Is it a red herring, or is it flavor of the month, or is it just making us lazy?
Yes to both. Yes, 100%. I mean, we've started incorporating it into a lot of what we're doing, and it all comes down to the prompts that you have.
Yeah.
So I think it's insanely powerful. We've used it for, identifying niche opportunities with certain products. Keyword research is something it's good at. Writing headline ads is something that we're actually looking at incorporating directly into our processes. Hey, write us our headline ads, do this. But from a biz dev perspective, like forget the Amazon advertising side. There's so much opportunity from a business development perspective. And I think the best part about it is it's consistent, reliable. So when you have, really strong virtual assistants or really great SOPs, you can build something out to, 10x your output across your team. Mm-hmm. So yes to laziness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to piggyback on Destiny's comments here is like the use cases we've already seen for it, not only internally at Pathfinder, because we do use it for several things, presently, but also all the talk that's gone on LinkedIn, which is absolutely impossible to escape. If you spend even a minute on LinkedIn, you're going to see a post about ChatGPT in some form. Those are other people also using it for different things. And it's been integrated into several software tools. I know ZonGuru has it. That's just the first one that comes to mind. We don't even use that tool frequently, but like it's a great tool. I've seen it in action. So yeah, to me, it's not even a question of, is it useful? Yeah, it's immediately useful. Is it also a red herring, or is it everyone too excited about it? Yep, both things are true. I agree. My hot take is that ChatGPT is more useful than crypto was within 6 months than crypto has been in 7 years. So that's my to crypto right there. Screw you, crypto.
Yeah, we're getting the hot opinions here.
Yeah, that's my hot take. You guys send me an email, be mad.
Send them all your Bitcoin as well. Anyone else using ChatGPT in different ways?
Well, I learned a lot. So South Park just did an episode on ChatGPT, and that taught me a ton about how to use ChatGPT in real life situations. So that was really good. And then what was I gonna South Park fans? It was good, dude. It was a good episode. So that was really funny. And then what else? I mean, I think it's awesome, dude. I do think like people are kind of super ecstatic about it. I think that's just like a people thing. I don't know. I think it's good. I really haven't used it that much, to be frank. I haven't used it a ton. I I don't have, but I think it's cool. Like I was using it the other day, just playing around with prompts and learning more about it. But it, I think it's AI, which is really cool stuff. So I think it's one of those things where like, if it's useful to you and helps you get to where you need to go, then go for it. And it's pretty cool. So that's my not knowing so much about ChatGPT answer.
Well, now I need to watch the South Park episode.
Yeah.
It's called
No,
deep
I would say
learning.
I'm the same boat as you, Sean. Like, I use it more so as like a first go-to resource to figure something else out, right? Like, kind of like when I'm in a fork in the road, I ask it a question, and it kind of gives me a better idea. And I think that's like a good way to use it right now. I'm still TBD on how I could actually integrate it within our client accounts. But for example, when you search things like, how do you improve your, PPC profitability or something like that, it actually gives you really good suggestions on like, hey, work on listing optimizations or, bid management, that sort of thing. So I think it's a really good for most people. It could be a really good tool right now to use to know where to go next or where to kind of allocate your time to next.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like it, and it evolves from your point there, Aaron. It just gets over that creativity block or writer's block. If I can't think of a headline, it's not just about putting the perfect prompt and the keywords in there for it to generate something. It's just like, my brain is fried at the moment. I just can't think. Like, just give me a few points so I can start going down that journey and actually get this job done and come up with something solid.
When Sarah asked for like a bio for myself, I'm like, oh man, a bio. So I asked GPT, here's my experience, blah, blah, blah. This is what I do. This is where I help. Write me something. And it came out something really good. I was like, okay, use it.
Dude, so listen to this. I had a family party last weekend. And so in the South Park episode, they were writing essays with the ChatGPT. So I was asking ChatGPT to write essays for me. So like my I was like, write a 400-word essay on whatever. And it did it. And it was a really decent essay. It was crazy, man. It
wasn't just taken from Wikipedia though, was it?
No, it was like, even the last paragraph was like, in conclusion. I was like, whoa, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, how many kids are not doing their homework anymore? Yeah.
Well, if they watch South Park, they'll just be using ChatGPT for all their essays.
Brilliant. So I'm going to come in with another broad question here. I know we've talked about some of the tools that we use to and processes and sort of insights that we use to get to seven figures. But what are some of the biggest challenges? What are some of the biggest hurdles and blockers that these sellers are going to face when trying to get to the seven figures? Is aiming that high straight out of the gate a deterrent? Should you just start as a small company and see where it takes you, or is having that goal, is that a positive or is that detrimental?
Yeah, I think just briefly interject, like standing out and consistently being seen on the marketplace, if we're talking about Amazon in isolation here, is probably the biggest challenge. Just having a profile that's high enough that you do have consistent sales and you are going to build an audience and the brand gets some notoriety, because there are, I don't know, probably hundreds of new products showing up on Amazon every day, maybe thousands of brands every year. I don't actually know the numbers for that. I'm sure you could find out in Marketplace Pulse or something, but like the velocity of that new brands and new products appearing has to be quite high. So just standing head and shoulders above a lot of those and making some kind of impact is probably the hardest thing to face when you're a 5 or 6 figure seller trying to get to 7, because that's what's going to ultimately get you there. I think that, what was it? Destaney, the infinite shelf is not infinite. You said that somewhere recently. Yeah, you're right. It's not infinite, actually. There's only so much attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will piggyback off of that. Like the small variables that have, I think, been affected the most by the competition and what the shelf looks like is CPCs. Like, back when we all started, I think everyone here has been in the space for over 5 years. Back when we started, CPCs on average were maybe like 60 cents, 70 cents. So we could target anything and everything and drive profitability. We could go really wide. We could make a lot of mistakes. Nowadays, I mean, the highest CPC I've seen consistently is like $30 for like a term massage gun.
Yeah.
So when you take a CPC that's just inherently much higher, that gives you a lot less margin of error. And that also means that if you want to drive traffic, you're not going to be able to do it as profitably as you did in the past. When we had 30-cent CPCs, we could get a lot of clicks and still drive a lot of orders. Now, when we have $3 CPCs, that means we're going to be a lot less profitable for the same amount of spend. And it's not anything that anyone's doing wrong, right? If we lower our bids and focus on profitability, then we see a major decrease in volume. If we increase our bids and justify the brand presence, then we're going to see a lot lower ROAS. So I think it's just like the education around where the market's at and making sure that you are updating your KPIs and your standards based on what's going on. Some of the hardest sellers I think that I've been to work with lately are people that were successful 6 years ago. And if they didn't update their strategies and their understanding of the marketplace now, we have to spend so much time educating of like, I promise we're not doing things wrong here. It's just a very different industry to be in nowadays. So staying up to date with that and understanding how it affects your business.
It's a hard conversation to have sometimes as well, because it's very easy to pinpoint the PPC as the problem, but it's understanding that advertising landscape, that economy has changed. Like, it is more expensive and it's not our fault. Well, I guess it is, because we've driven the prices up. Not us specifically, but it's just, that market keeps on building and building. We used to see coming out at the end of Prime Day, people would bring their CPCs down, but people just hang on now. They don't drop off. It keeps going up every year. And I think Amazon know that now. So they encourage that, like those extra bids, boost your budgets, make sure they're okay. People double them for the day, and then you can't bring them back down because no one else does. Everyone's just like holding on, waiting for the first person to drop, but no one does.
It's real estate. Like, I think that's the part, I think Brent made a comment about the granularity and simplicity of Amazon advertising. Like, we have a lot more control than what people realize. I think people like to think PPC is like a black box and it's just doing its own thing. At the end of the day, we're all in an auction for real estate. So what real estate's going to be the most expensive? It's the one at the top of the page that every single person sees. That's what's going to drive the most sales and the most impressions for you. Now, not everyone can justify that, but it's not Amazon saying, hey, let's charge $5 for this placement. You have brands that have a lot of money who pay for billboards. And when you pay for a billboard, it's a certain amount of cash and you can't track the impressions.
Yeah.
People are taking that money and putting it on Amazon because it's still a billboard. They're still driving awareness, but you can actually see direct correlation in impressions and sales. So people are willing to take a loss on those placements, which is fantastic for them, but it inflates bids for everyone else. So now smaller brands can't pay for that placement because big brands who can take a loss are seeing a loss in money. So I think that's kind of like something I have to explain to a lot of people. It's like, hey, it's not fair, but you do have Nestle's and Procter and Gamble's who are going to pay for this inventory because it's amazing inventory, regardless if they're making money.
I was optimizing a health and beauty brand recently and just trying to defend their own brand name. And I know what the bid for our brand name was typically, but Olay started moving into the space. And they clearly got this huge advertising budget that they needed to spend. If they don't spend it, it's not going to carry over to the next month. So they're just going to waste it on any term. Our product wasn't even relevant. It's more of a luxury product than their household items. But they were pushing the bids up on our brand name up to like $20. And I was like, how am I meant to get that back? That's my brand. So we were losing so much real estate on those sponsor brand videos, those sponsor brand headline ads. And it's just like, how do you compete with that when someone's just got deep pockets? Yeah, it's understanding how that has changed.
Yeah.
And do you think sorry, I was going to say, do you think more of those bigger brands have come to Amazon just because it's another marketplace for them to play around in? Or do you think like the pandemic accelerated that because of less access to sort of brick and mortar and big box stores, that more people were just reliant on those next day deliveries through a very easy and recognizable platform like Amazon?
I would say like 30 to 40% of our brands are like enterprise or direct to consumer or retail brands. And we 100% saw that shift. Yeah. I think there are a few different things. One, the iOS changes that caused a decrease in performance across Facebook and everything else that caused budgets to shift over. COVID was a huge factor. I think one of the largest pet brands on Amazon I talked to said that they went from like less than 10% of their business being driven from Amazon to over 60% during COVID. That's because people aren't going in stores. And by the nature of consumer habits, the spend is going to follow. So that is a huge reason why everyone shifted their budgets to focus on Amazon. And I also think Amazon's so powerful. It is like one of the most powerful retail media advertising models. So once people started to understand that and understand the data that was coming, their budgets again shifted over because it justified with the amount of volume being driven through the platform.
Mm-hmm. And I think not only Amazon will be the one seeing the benefit of this, I think Walmart will too, and other online retailers that are just, I mean, think about like e-commerce in general, speaking for the North American market, but it's still like a fairly, minority percentage of overall commerce, which is going to continue to grow. I think the data has shown that the pandemic maybe accelerated that by a year, but then it kind of reset to baseline. And a year hitting the fast forward button effectively for a year is a pretty big structural change. But now we're back to what the growth rate would have been. But that growth rate is still, marching forward regardless of pandemic. I think it was an accelerant for a brief period of time. Maybe that's not the most organized way to frame it, but I think that brands are going to be on these platforms like Amazon, not just Amazon, but like Amazon, all across the world.
Yeah.
From an advertising perspective, I mean, Walmart is still the world's largest retailer. I mean, any day or week that could change at this point in time. But Walmart has the in-store presence. So when you're looking at advertising, if Walmart can figure out how to tie in their .com advertising with their retail in-store lift, I mean, they're going to do big things. And as Amazon gets more competitive, again, the budgets are going to flow to wherever the customers are going. So it's a really big bet, but a low risk bet to make that Walmart's going to end up taking up more and more of that market share. And if you get in now, it could be like Amazon 7 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket. You can still keep a presence on Amazon. I remember when I first saw a presentation on Walmart, I think it was led by Norm. He's the Walmart guy, isn't he? He was saying like the CPCs are so low. It's like back in 2013, 2014 on Amazon when it was the Wild West. Like jump over there, throw your listing on there, and your keywords are going to be like 10 cents or even less potentially. So it's not the biggest risk to take. If it doesn't work, it didn't cost you as much as it's currently costing you on Amazon. Yep. So yeah, I hate to say it, but explore those other opportunities as well. Don't just keep it all in one place. I know we're all Amazon guys.
Hey, I'm from Bentonville. I'm from the home of Walmart, so I may be a little biased. But
fair enough.
Yeah, Walmart's paying for the streets in Destiny's town down there. Yeah,
yes. I talked to a brand the other day, and I think they do around like 200 million on Amazon, and they told me that their Walmart presence was larger, and I was like, wow. Really? Because that's the only brand I've talked to that said like their .com presence was larger than their Amazon presence, and they're doing that type of volume. So that was cool to see.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's unique. I like that.
Yeah, it is possible. Then that's all we need to know. There's a chance.
Possible. Yeah. Sean, you touched on briefly earlier about adapting to Amazon as it changes. So I'm just going to open this to everyone. How can Amazon sellers optimize their decision-making abilities as the platform grows, and so how they know how to adapt? Is it about keeping tabs on the industry, following the right people on LinkedIn, getting in the right circles?
I would say like at this point in time with the internet, with how I mean, like, social media is huge, right? Like it's a huge thing. And so I think the best question to ask yourself is like who not to listen to. Yeah. At this point in my life, it's not about who to listen to. It's about who not to listen to, because there's so many, when you look at the regulation of speech online, you can kind of say whatever you want to an extent, right? They do have like moderators where you can't have certain stuff, but there's a lot out there and it can be a little overwhelming. So, how do you create a system in your mind that allows you to ask yourself, who is this person? Should I listen to them? And listening to how to do that. So I think that's huge, because when you're looking to do anything in life, you need to gather wisdom from somewhere. So you gather it from a blend of, insight, over the years, and then, externally. So communities, mentors, and stuff like that. So I think when it comes to, chiseling your decision-making, it's about who, like, how do you pick who to, it's not going out and just being like, I'm going to listen to everybody. How do you pick who to listen to? Because we all have a finite amount of time. And, when you think of entrepreneurs, you think of like Amazon sellers, right? There's a 6-figure Amazon seller works 12 hours a day. There's an 8-figure Amazon seller works 12 hours a day. Well, within those 12 hours, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, you have to look at each hour as an opportunity to get better within those hours. And so I think that, you have to see it that way. You have to see it that way. And that awareness is a starting point for like, okay, an hour isn't just an hour. It's like, what do I do within this hour to get to where I want to go? And then also actually having a North Star. So, getting into business is great, but really having like a North Star to know where you want to go. And also like having like a strength in that North Star. Because if your goals change every day, and if you're pulled in different directions every day, you kind of veer from your path. And I know things change over time, but you want to have a general North Star that you can work towards. And, I think those are the two big things, is like having where you want to go and having strength in that. And then knowing how to make decisions to get there. I think that's a good skill set, because, everyone's selling something on the internet these days. And so, and marketers are really good, man. Their job is to get you emotionally involved, and they're good at it, dude. That's what they spend money and time doing. So, you having the self-awareness to be like, hey, okay, this is the prioritize what's good and what's not, I think is important.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap up here with one more question before we move to the questions from our attendees and our audience. If all of you could give one top tip to sellers watching this event today, what would be your most useful tip? If there was one thing that they could take away, what would you share with them? I'm just going to go clockwise around my screen now. So I'm going to start with you, Destaney.
I would say to get really comfortable with navigating the advertising console's targeting tab. So as a brand owner, when you aren't super in tune with every single bid, every single CPC, keyword, and conversion rate, the targeting tab is my new favorite viewpoint. You can go into the targeting tab in Ad Console and see filter by highest spends last 30 days. You can add a column for conversion rate. And what it's going to show you is all of your sponsored product targets, which is typically where your highest spend is going. And then you can quickly evaluate, hey, is the majority of my spend going to my top converting keywords? Or is it going to an auto campaign? Like, that's a red flag. Is it going to category targeting? That's a red flag. Or maybe it's going to a term that isn't converting super well. Being able to high level audit your business within 35 seconds can really help your relationship with your PPC manager and make sure you have more trust there, and also understand, is your spend working for you?
Yeah. Sean, you're up next.
Dude, this one's really hard. This is like a hard question to answer. No, I'm serious,
just
man.
pick one.
Yeah, man. I got to pick one, and which one's the best one? I guess top tip, because this is for people who want to sell 7 figures on Amazon. I think my top tip, I'll base it on the feedback I'm getting from who I work with, my clients and clientele. How do you get better at conversion rate optimization? Like, how do you become really the best at it? Because it decreases your customer acquisition cost. And I think it's not only a short-term solution because of what's happening now, but it's a long-term solution. So, how do you really get good at, optimizing your image stack, your title, your bullets, your in making sure that you're keeping up with, like, hey, what's your brand? Do you have a brand story? You might need to add one on there. One of my, putting video in your listings more and more. So I think focusing on like conversion rate optimization would be my top tip.
Brilliant, thank you. Brent.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. It is a tough question. Mine's a bit more zoomed out. I do have an answer I hope is useful, which is, I think, part of the appeal of the Amazon business model, if you will, that has kind of been taught in so many courses and is talked about at all these conferences, is the assumption that Amazon as a company is taking care of a lot of logistics, right? They're FBA. That's what the part of the promise is, FBA. We have some clients, I know several people that are FBM, which is a very different set of challenges that they have. But most businesses I know that are 7 figures and now far beyond 7 figures, maybe they have their own warehouse. They have their own like 3PL. They have logistics that they need to figure out. And historically, that's what e-commerce has been, actually. It hasn't been about the fun and sexy things like marketing and branding and like going in the interface and screwing around with your ads every afternoon because it makes you feel like you're doing something when in fact it might not be. We've all seen that, I'm sure, on the ad side here. Clients that like to fiddle with it because it gives them the sense of like control, the sense of, something is progressing or improving because of it. But what e-commerce actually is, in my opinion, is these 1% improvements that compound over a long period of time. Maybe it's saving 5 cents per unit on your shipping, or improving the redundancy of your supply chain, which, COVID, I think, laid bare a lot of the inadequacies there and the problems there, or turning things that are potential cost centers like advertising, like maybe your ads is actually losing you money right now. What if you put that in the hands of someone skilled, either internally or externally at an agency or whatever, or tool, and through skilled management, you turn that into a profit center instead of a cost center. So those minor things, like a lot of the clients that are our biggest clients that are most successful I talk to, and they're like, yeah, I'm in the warehouse right now. We're doing a new pallet system. We just got a new software thing that we're using to like restructure like how we do things internally. It's like, it'll save us an hour here and an hour there. It's like, okay, cool. Do that every day for 2 years. And eventually you have a very well-run business. Those are the things that I think I see at the 7-figure plus size that are the most interesting. There's small, non-sexy improvements that add up.
Yeah, I like that one. And Aaron, top tip from yourself.
That's so good, Brent. I would just say, so most of my clients are focused on just increasing profit, not necessarily increasing brand awareness, the top of funnel type of thing. So that's where my tip is going to come in, is just profitability. And I would say that the biggest ball that a lot of them had faced in the beginning, the biggest ball dropped, was that they were focusing on just ACOS, sometimes just tacos. I highly encourage them to look at it at a more bigger scope, right? Tie in all costs. So Amazon fees, refunds, promos, all those things, and look at your net profit. Use that as a KPI. I would say that'd be a huge tip to help them grow profit in the long run.
I like that one. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Obviously, the questions aren't over because we've got questions from the attendees. So I'm just going to dive straight in. Feel free to continue to submit any questions you've got, even if we don't get through to them on today's webinar. There's going to be extra podcasts and things that we can cover these questions on. So got a nice long one to kick us off. So no matter what skill we're talking about, to become a master, one must have a thorough understanding of its fundamental principles and concepts. In other words, one must master the basics and use them as a strong foundation for further growth and development. Based on your experiences, what are some of the basics that Amazon service providers must master? And are there any basics that Amazon sellers and brand owners must master? Or are there some basic concepts that they need to understand in order for their business to succeed?
I think we need to invite this person on the webinar.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Is this a
That was
tenet
a
of
good question.
Confucianism?
No, in order to master, we need to bring them on. That was good. All right.
Incredible question. Okay, so the one was service providers, right? I can speak to that and maybe some of the seller stuff. I mean, service providers, I think, need to master a couple things. One of which is communication and doing what you say you'll do. Those two things are really important in my experience. So if you say this campaign set will be built by Monday, or we'll have that document back to you, you'll get the report on Tuesday, follow through on that and do it. Don't say you're going to do something and then not do it. That's because that will erode trust. And what do you have as a service provider? You have trust and reputation, and what else? You have the strength of your work. So if you erode trust, like, you're kind of SOL. Yeah. So for service providers, there you go. For sellers, understand your costs. and that's like a basic thing. Like I just said with the tip is like, what's the financial structure of your products? Like, can you save 5 cents per unit shipped by doing this? Can you change this process? Can you make the packaging smaller so Amazon gives you a smaller fee? Like these little things like that. I would call that a basic. I think that's like footwork, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think on top of what you said there, because you've given one for service and one for sellers, I think there's one that they can both take into consideration together. And that's if you are working with an agency or a third party, like actually aligning with them and making sure that you've both understood the brief, you understand what the seller wants to do, and the seller understands the strategies that the agency or the expert you've hired is doing. Like if you're both pulling in different directions or not listening to each other or not aligning, you're just going to either completely slow yourself down or just send yourself in the wrong direction and potentially become a 5-figure seller from a 6-figure seller.
I would chime in on the service provider side.
Yeah. Go for it.
And I would just say the biggest thing would be consistency as a service provider. Because I don't know how many sellers I've worked with who said, hey, I've already worked with an agency in the past, and they did good things in the beginning, but it just kind of trailed off from there. So I think that's a really big problem on the agency side, is that people just are not consistent with what they do, the amount of time they spend on an account. Like I would say, if you want to spend less time on an account, then innovate, right? Innovate your processes so that you don't need to spend the same amount of time doing those same certain things, but you're still spending those good, you're still like allocating resources into that account, growing it in some way, shape, or form, and not just letting it stagnate, because then your brand's going to leave you.
Yeah.
I would say, like, after doing this for 6 years and a ton of different brands, like one thing that we really came to the realization of is it doesn't matter how good your results are at the end of the day, like anyone can drive results. There's a ton of different agencies in the space, and there's a lot of different defining factors of what success is. One agency may increase your overall revenue. One agency may get you a 5% ACoS, right? But the biggest thing that has maintained clients, even for us, is the relationship. It's really focusing in on how we can build a relationship and how well we listen to their actual needs and how we make sure we're optimizing for what their long-term goals are. I mean, I know a lot of different brands that have left their agency providers and came to us and been like, look, they got me a 5% ACoS, which is fine, but I want to grow. So making sure you're redefining what success looks like and valuing that relationship, because we have a ton of brands where we've driven amazing results for, they still left because we didn't have enough calls or they didn't feel heard. On the flip side, we have a lot of brands that maybe results weren't ideal for, but they continue to stay with us because they trusted us and know that we're continuously investing in their long-term success.
Yeah, they trust the process. They know that we're not magicians. Like we can't just pull results out of thin air sometimes. But yeah, they've trusted you. They know that you're on it. Then you know that we're reporting. And yeah, I've been on many calls with clients where the data's not good, but the vibes are still good because of like that relationship we've got and the trust we've got. It really makes a difference. Next question from the audience. Feels like I'm in a theater when I say audience, but that's not quite how it works. How would you advise an Amazon seller who is quickly growing to manage their cash flow?
I would say like one big thing that comes up for us a lot is if you don't know your numbers for your overall business, you can't advise your PPC team. I know, like, again, PPC is kind of the easiest thing to look at in terms of when everything's going wrong, it's PPC. When everything's going right, it's PPC. But really making sure that you, like, being an accountant and being very close to your numbers and then being able to lead your Amazon advertising is like one of the biggest things that we've seen.
Yeah.
I can probably answer this question at an agency level, but when it comes to something that's super inventory heavy and very cash flow intensive, like e-commerce, I don't feel qualified to answer. My advice would be get an e-commerce bookkeeper, find someone even fractionally who is like an accountant and work with them, because you need to understand what you can afford to have on hand and what the balance is between, oh, we're going to stock out on these best sellers, or we're overloaded on inventory, or even worse, we've had this happen with clients. They have products that will expire. And then if your products expire, you're basically just throwing money down the toilet. So there's a fine line to walk between these few things. And I am not an accountant, let's be clear. So don't take advice from me if I was going to tell you directly what to do.
Yeah, on top of that, I would say, I'm not an expert on cash flow by any means, but if you're in doubt about your own expertise about something, reach out to someone who does know how to do that for you. So yeah, I'll double down on what you said, Brent. Aaron.
So I have a client who they just launched this year in March, and within 3 of their 6 products that they launched, 3 of them are like within the top 3 of their categories. So they're growing super quick. And when they came to me, they explained to me what they were doing and how they were managing PPC. And it seemed I was very surprised at how they were able to grow so quickly given their PPC. It was very rudimentary, like time like one automatic, one manual type of thing. And but that wasn't the problem. The problem is, how do you manage cash flow? Well, one of the things that we did was right away we signed them up with Seller Board so that we can automatically start to see net profit, because they were just telling me, hey, just shoot for like this ACoS and don't spend more than this much per day, right? And I was kind of wondering like why, like, so once I signed them up with Seller Board and we started to see actual profit, now I'm starting to say, hey, look, we can pull back ACoS a lot more and we could spend a lot more and still increase your overall profit and help your cash flow. And they didn't see that before because they didn't have that transparent dashboard view. So I would just say, having some type of dashboard or view, whether it's Seller Board or something else, to be able to track overall profitability on an ongoing basis, maybe not just like once a month or once a quarter, but consistently, that'll help you.
Yeah, we've worked on a couple of like turnaround projects where we worked with the account, and really like we used Seller Board, saw the margin was low, and like you said, when your margin's low, like you don't get as much cash back, and so it can cause even more issues, especially if you have like loan payments and all that stuff. And so for us, increasing margin helped, because it allowed them to pay back more into their loans and do a lot of better like cash flow management. So for us, it was like, hey, improving margins really help with putting money back in the bank so that they could manage their cash flow better. So looking at how all those variables work together, but that's what we did to help with kind of the cash flow situation for a few companies we worked with.
Thank you. Another question. Has anyone tried any external traffic sources? If so, what platforms are you using? And how much is spent in percentage from the total ad budgets using those platforms? Amazon loves external traffic, so it's definitely a good thing to consider. Has anyone tried any external traffic?
I'm a one-trick pony, Tom. I'm a one-trick pony. That's it.
Yeah, same.
I can comment on this from the Google perspective, at least. Yeah. I see Destaney, you willing to talk there as well. So maybe we can tag team this. But like, yeah, we're big fans of what we call G2A, so Google to Amazon, basically. And percentage, yeah, I mean, it's a small percentage. For the larger clients that we do this for, it's maybe 5% of what they spend on Amazon. But I would say the guideline that we've been given by Amped, which is a tool we use to do it with, we have a close relationship with some of the team there, is generally speaking, they say a minimum of $500 a month for a given campaign. And that campaign will be for one product, and that one product will have anywhere from 6 to 8 keywords in it. So let's say $500 for 6 to 8 keywords over the course of a month. So if you want to advertise 3 products, that's a minimum of $1,500. Usually we start with people and, or I should say clients that do that. And, we say, hey, let's have a minimum budget of like 4 or 5K a month for this and scale from there. Takes a few months to figure it out. We have been able to conclusively prove in some categories that we've been able to maintain or improve organic rank on keywords if we have consistent spend against them. And in some cases, those same keywords have also been able to be run with a good ROAS. Because of course we're talking about ROAS when we're doing off Amazon stuff for the most part. It's the same thing as ACoS, but we just talk about it differently. So that's been the only one we've done. We haven't done TikTok. I know that's huge. Pinterest, I guess. Like some people have built whole businesses off of just sending Facebook traffic to Amazon. I have no experience with that. But Google is something I'm comfortable with because I worked with Google Ads before I started doing Amazon, and several people on my team are also savvy with it. So we've started doing that.
Yeah. And talking to TikTok, if you want to find out any more information about TikTok ads, just find Lazar Zepinich on LinkedIn or from Sellers Alley.
That's right.
His agency are big on TikTok advertising. And you mentioned Pinterest as well. So find Matt Parker from Pinformative. Yeah, you'll get all the information you need from them regarding those external traffic sources. Hey, Aaron, it looks like your dog made an appearance there.
Yeah, man, he wants to go out.
One other thing I'll kind of piggyback off of that, other than shout out to Lazar, it's one of my best friends, is when you're looking at traffic options to really view it from a high level perspective. You know, Amazon advertising is probably always going to be one of the most direct, highest converting sources, because when someone's shopping on Amazon, they're planning on purchasing. So your PPC is, you know, the first step to that. But at the end of the day, not everyone can afford it. So that's when I really start saying, hey, where can we distribute our budget that's going to be more profitable from like a cost per acquisition standpoint? Like if we can do Google to Amazon, even if our conversion rate's a lot less, maybe it's a lot cheaper. So we start viewing everything from, hey, what's the maximum volume we can drive? And then what's the ROAS of that? And then comparing them against each other. We work in a lot of categories where it is becoming so much more pay to play. And that's when we start opening up the conversation of like, hey, I love Amazon advertising, but you can't afford this. So let's start looking into Google to Amazon. Let's start looking into audience building and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram to really build up that, you know, relevancy. I know one of the most recent case studies that Lazar did was using Sephora and taking, you know, L'Oreal traffic from TikTok. And it was so much cheaper from like a cost per impression standpoint. So even though your conversion rate is going to be so much less, it's like, hey, if you can do it at a cheaper way, then it's still traffic. Like that's what Amazon loves. And I think they are pushing more benefit to external traffic, like Tom mentioned, because they know it's becoming more pay to play. So it's still a good thing to get traffic at a cheaper source.
And it also meant, yeah, the end destination is still Amazon. Still more money for them at the end of the day. So
you're still buying from them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're happy at the end of the day, regardless. Another question, and I know you mentioned this tool earlier, Brent, but has anyone here tried Zonguru? What are your experiences with that platform? Is it a worthwhile tool? Apologies if I missed.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to our experience from it directly. We use it for listing optimization stuff here and there, and it does have a AI integration. I'm not sure if it's ChatGPT or something else. I personally don't do that stuff. I have someone on my team, Elena, who's spearheading a lot of that. She's a genius with it. Shout out to her. And she has definitely had a call with them recently, actually, about some of these use cases. And they have a keywords on fire feature, which is also pretty good. I mean, I think that some of these tools like Helium 10 have kind of been the big players in the space, but with the availability of more first-party data, like Destaney always hammers on, and these other third-party tools, I see Jungle Scout coming back more strongly recently, I guess you could say, and Data Dive is a big one. There's all these options out there. I think Zonguru is another really strong option for keyword research too. So we use it for those two things, if my memory is correct.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess if you want to know more about the Zonguru platform, just reach out to them. I'm sure they can give you a demo. Another question here. Do you have any top techniques on how to stay competitive in the market, especially as more and more sellers are coming to the market? I used to say every month, now it's probably every day. And a lot of them look the same. It's hard to tell one seller apart from the other until you actually click on it and actually see what store it's attached to. So yeah, how can you stay competitive in a world where everyone's trying to copycat everyone else because someone's got a good technique and everyone copies it and all of a sudden you're not unique anymore?
I would say like be really like put together a real good product research system. You know, product research I think is one of the most under like taking it from a technical perspective. Like I think a lot of people use qualitative. Hey, you know, this looks, but having like a real data-driven, criteria-based approach to product research will help you with not only finding the right product, but through that process, you're going to gather a lot of intelligence about the competition and what you need to be above the competition. And I think on top of that, you know, I think Amazon's becoming more, I mean, it has been, is moving forward into like, you got to have really strong content, like really strong content. So, you know, a lot of the brands I'm working with, like, you know, when we launch, we have everything already. You know what I mean? Like we have everything already when we launch, not like, hey, you know, we're going to get this and this in order. We have the A+. And not only like, do we have that stuff, we're not just throwing stuff up there, right? We're testing it and we're, you know, they're meticulously going through the content and asking like, basically you're listing as a salesman or saleswoman, whatever. It's a salesperson, right? So that salesperson needs to sell the person that comes there. So that means they need to communicate to the person at an emotional level, which I know sounds a little weird when you're looking at a listing, but it's sales. So making sure your listing speaks to the needs of the person that comes there is really, really big. And making sure your content is on point is huge, I think.
Yeah, and on top of that, to build on that, on the listing side, is I would look at your positive reviews, like see what the repeated points are that people love about your products, and start to include those points into your own bullet points and into your listing. If that's what people love about your product and you've not mentioned it, you've been handed a bragging point from your reviews. And on the flip side, look at your competitors' negative reviews. If all of those repeated points about how poor those products are, how cheap they are, they fall apart quickly, or they don't last long, or they're not organic, or they're not climate friendly. If your product is and you've not mentioned it, put that in your listing as well, because you're automatically solving the issue that people have seen when they're looking at the competitors' products.
ChatGPT can analyze your reviews for you and give you, the highest opportunity for positive feedback. They're able to analyze all of it and pull out, hey, this was mentioned most, this was this. One other thing I'll throw out there is if you've been on the platform for 6 years and you're in a normal category, someone's going to knock you off, like end of day. So you either need to be okay with losing market share as more competitors enter your space, or you need to say, hey, how can I innovate? How can I make more products and win the market that way? Or how can I build an audience that's so loyal, there's no chance of them buying my competitor? I mean, you think about when everyone started, everyone starts with a lower price point. Typically, that's like your main launch strategy. And they find a way to differentiate by color. You're always going to deal with that competition, right? Someone's always going to be knocking off your product with a cheaper price or a different variation, unless you build so much loyalty that customers don't care about that. And you innovate in a market that keeps you top of mind, that always gives you that competitive advantage. The same thing your competitors are doing to you, make sure you're doing to the market and within the category. Now, if you have something completely unique and patented, amazing, good for you. Hopefully someone with less moral compass doesn't knock it off.
Yeah.
But it's all about, you can't take the same product and expect it to drive the same amount of success year over year in I don't know. I always say it's the revolution of commerce that we're in is amazing. People can innovate and use their cell phone to contact a supplier, a social media agency, and get investments. So it's very unlikely that someone's not going to knock off your product or try to do what you're doing, but better, unless you continue to innovate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the question to ask yourself is, what moats do you have? Imagine your business as a castle and you're trying to build a moat around the castle. So if you have very few moats, and as Destaney said, someone can contact a supplier through their phone, and then that's your only moat, well, your moat's just been breached. Someone has built a bridge over it, or they drain the water out of there. If your moat is you have a really strong brand, like I alluded to earlier in this webinar, that's a great moat. That's really powerful. An example I'll give is maybe a bit strange, but I had shoes I bought for a wedding, and I needed to like polish them up. And I was like, I need like a shoe polish and brush. I was like, do I know where to look for those? And for some reason, I thought of the brand Kiwi, because that brand is lodged in my head for some reason. I have no idea where they're even from, but that brand was in my head. So I bought a Kiwi brush and shoe polish, and I was like, okay, there you go. Problem solved. Did I search on Amazon and look around? No, they already had got into my head somehow, and they had incepted me. And so I went and purchased their brand right away, because that was the brand I associated with shoe polish for whatever reason. Not saying it's the best one out there, but they definitely got me. And I didn't have to look through and sift through the dozens of options on Amazon that are from brands that I can't pronounce or don't even know. So that was their moat right there. They had somehow gotten into my head. So whatever moats you have, maybe you have a moat that's a mold or something like that. You have a proprietary way to make your products, or a patent, like Destaney said. Those are moats too. Those are also moats.
I liked what you said about Kiwi there. Like, brand recognition has gone a long way there. And yeah, they got into your head for a reason. That's probably the only one I could name, but it hadn't triggered until you'd mentioned it. But even if they're not the best, they've done the job of being a player in the game for a long time. And they've served that. Like, McDonald's isn't the best, but it's the most notorious. It doesn't mean it's the best burger, but it's out there. That's the first thing people are going to think of when you say hamburger. And it's very easy to access. So like, building that brand is incredibly important.
Hey,
Yeah, we all
Tom,
know
is
the
it
best
cool if I
burger is
add-
Five Guys.
In-N-Out Burger. When we
I've never had that.
Cool. So final question. What are the best ad strategies to build brand awareness on Amazon? We've just talked about branding with Kiwi, McDonald's, and it's been a theme throughout this webinar. It's not just about your PPC, it's about building the brand as well. So what are the best ad strategies to build brand awareness? So we're combining both of those. We've covered brand analytics, we've covered brand metrics. There's a few things in there that you can use to guide.
I want to set everyone else up here, but Sean, was talking about sometimes you just max out your PPC. You get to number one and more search will actually cannibalize what you're doing on the organic side. That is the perfect opportunity to start shifting over to DSP. And the easiest way to think about DSP is when you're running Amazon advertising PPC, you're waiting for someone to come to Amazon, search for your product and see your ad. So you're waiting. It's, very reactive model. The power of DSP is unlocked by going out and obtaining that customer. So making sure that it's a more disruptive advertising model. And I think DSP is one of the best ways to drive brand awareness, but I think that's more of y'all's skill set, especially you, Tom. But I think DSP is the first and foremost.
Yeah, DSP is an incredibly powerful tool because you're not targeting contextually. You're targeting an audience and you're building that audience or just finding that audience. And it's not just endemic to Amazon. You're not just targeting people while they're on that platform. Once they've seen your product or once you've found them, you've found a shopping aisle that they're in, you can just target that entire shopping aisle or demographic and just follow them around the web. Obviously, you've got control over how many times they see that ad per day, but you can bug them. It's push advertising. You can just follow them all day. And obviously you got the other end, you've got the low hanging fruit. You can remarket to those people that saw your product and didn't convert. So yeah, you can bug them at both ends of that marketing funnel. Is anyone else using DSP?
I don't use DSP, but in my past life, when I was on the brand side, we use top of funnel prospecting ads like Google Display to feed the funnel, and then all of our other Google search remarketing to then capture that. So if I was a high 7-8 figure brand and wanting to feed brand awareness, that would be the first place I would go to DSP, even before like Google Display, just because Amazon is improving their system so much so that once you feed the funnel, you can then recapture them with your remarketing ads and that sort of thing. So that would be the very first place I would go to. And then maybe beyond there, Google or external stuff like that.
Yeah, and the great thing about Amazon's DSP is it's got all that first party data from Amazon. So you're not just picking a demographic because you think that works. Like Amazon has that data on all those data points. And if you've got a certain shopper profile that would buy your products, you can start targeting that. That's one of the downsides to sort of contextual targeting. You know the sort of person you want to target, but there's multiple different sort of profiles that will be searching for any given keyword. If you just want professionals or people with a certain income to search for your products, you can do that through DSP and display advertising. You don't just have to rely on hoping the person who fits that bill types in that keyword.
And can you even imagine how much it's going to improve from here? With Alexa data, all of that stuff, man, and then Amazon seems to be the earlier you get into a program or a beta, the better. So I would, even if you're not going to spend a whole bunch of money, just even test it out just a little bit, just to get your foot in the door, meet the right contacts, so that eventually once it does explode, you're already hitting the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even on the video side, in some accounts, they've rolled out the sponsor brands OTT video, which is a super cool opportunity. Aaron said, right now, it's probably not in the best interest of a lot of brands, but the fact that Amazon's giving us the power to take our video ads and run them across their whole video network, like Fire TV and tablet devices, that's amazing. That's going to open up so much more advertising inventory. But again, going back to the basics, it is more disruptive. It's more about brand awareness. So you can't go into that type of model and say, hey, I'm going to get a great ROAS. No, if I'm watching TV and I'm watching The Boys, I'm not going to go buy your product in the middle of that commercial, but I'll be aware of it and it'll be top of mind when I do decide to go later on.
And you're likely to see it over and over again because it's not contextual. You see it
Yep.
during boys, you see it during the second episode, the third episode if you're binging. But then it's gonna follow you around wherever those videos are available.
Yep.
Yeah, DSP is a small but still meaningful part of our business. I wouldn't say it's something that we heavily are like pushing on this year, but we have several people internally who are quite comfortable with it, and have several clients that are at the level where they can spend on it consistently with a meaningful budget. And what's been maybe most interesting for us is Amazon Marketing Cloud paired with DSP, because I think that for me is like the killer app. That's the thing that's going to make it far more legible for us and therefore clients too. So there's so many things I wanted to know about DSP for many years that only now are becoming possible thanks to AMC. So that is what I'm hyped about with DSP related to that. So yeah, there's some tool providers out there that are making that data available. Some people are doing it in-house if they have the resources to do it. Whatever way you get it, as long as it informs your advertising efforts on DSP, you're better off. We've definitely done AMC analysis paired with video, and that's given us a much more clear idea of what it's actually doing.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for everyone for attending today. It's been incredible to share this time with our guests, Destaney, Sean, Brent, and Aaron. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys a chance to plug your businesses, plug your socials. Yeah, at ClearAds, you can find us at www.clearads.co.uk, and we're actually running an offer today. So if you go to clearads.co.uk/event-offer, we are able to offer a free audit on our services. We will waive the $500 setup fee and reduce our management fee by 10% for the first 3 months. So you can find us across all socials. We've even got a documentary going through YouTube. But yeah, Destaney, plug away, sell your business to everyone.
Well, I think the biggest focus for us is typically content and education. So feel free to check us out at the BetterAMS YouTube channel or follow us on LinkedIn. I think that is where we post most of our content across the team, whether it's AMC, tech initiatives, or just Amazon advertising strategy. Then if you're interested in a free audit and working with us, betterams.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sean.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about what I do and stuff like that, I do some YouTube. I haven't done in a while, but there's some good content there. I do have a website, ppcamsaccelerator.com. And yeah, so if you want to, learn about me and from me, then I'd check those out.
Thank you, Sean. And it's an incredible website as well. Our team members have used your accelerator. So yeah. Brent, yeah, we have. Brent, yourself.
Yeah, sure. AMZpathfinder.com for all the main stuff. I'm active on LinkedIn, not nearly as much as Destaney though. If you don't follow Destaney, you're doing yourself a disservice. So make sure to follow her. Just a plug for that. We have YouTube channel as well, AMZ Pathfinder. But yeah, we're super interested this year in doing content optimization and external traffic to Amazon. We're doing fine on the clients on Amazon side, but we're really trying to scale and put some muscle behind the Google to Amazon and the content optimization. So if you have questions or thoughts or interested in those two things, definitely reach out. And for me personally, you can just go to brent.bike. I do have the .bike domain. And the most important thing to do there is follow me on Strava, because that's the only social network I care about. so
That's awesome.
So there you go.
And Aaron, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, for me, if you want to chat about PPC, you could reach out to me directly at Aaron Michael Moreno on Facebook or LinkedIn, or my email is aaron@amazing.io.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thanks again for attending our webinar today. And as a reminder, the webinar will be made available after the event on YouTube if you wanted to listen to it again, or maybe you wanted to get a reminder, but it's also going to be available on our podcast platform in the future as well. So thank you very much from me and all of our guests today. And we look forward to sharing our wisdom on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.